Becky here. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. I am a mom who likes to talk about books, and I am here to do the mid-year book freakout tag. I wanted to take a minute to just talk about a few things, how my reading year has been going this year, and since joining BookTube and discovering the more online bookish community in 2019. So prior to 2019, I had never participated in any readathons or anything like that because I just was not a part of the greater bookish community. And since joining the community, I have discovered things like readathons, and I have really enjoyed participating in those and using them as a way, like using the prompts and stuff as a way to pick different books off of, preferably off my bookshelves, but sometimes through the library and things like that. I have found it a very great way to challenge myself to pick up different books. And so that has been awesome. And another benefit of being a part of BookTube has been reading more diversely. I am one of those people who always said if a book sounded interesting to me, I would read it. Becoming a part of more social media beyond just Facebook, like being a part of Twitter and Instagram, showed me that I wasn't being shown more diverse books that sounded interesting. I'm trying to make it a point to look for more diverse authors. And whatever diverse means to you, for me it is reading BIPOC authors and even people who would be physically disabled. Or I'm reading two books right now from people who are autistic. So they may be white and look more like me, but they are diverse in a different way. I want to clarify, when I say I would read books that sound interesting to me, I understand what people are saying by that, but I can understand it that it's frustrating because that usually means older white male authors or just side-gendered or white female or whatever. For me, that always just meant like if the story sounded interesting, I picked it up and I read it. It had nothing to do with who the author was. I didn't buy a book just because it had blank's name on it, except for like obviously when you come across an author that you love and you like multiple works, you have authors. Obviously that happens for me as well. Like Michael Connelly, who happens to be an older, middle-aged, white male author. Or like when I first got into reading James Patterson. I loved his books. I read so many of his books. And then after a while, I was like, okay, it's just the same story over and over and over again. And I gave up. But I kept with Michael Connelly. But now I still read that way, but I try to make an effort of like when people are talking about Black romance or Black thriller writers or just BIPOC, a lot of people read Japanese translated books and stuff like that. I still pick up books that sound interesting to me though. I don't just pick up a book like, oh, it's a Black author, and then read this like high fantasy book that I would never read otherwise and only read it because it's got a Black author and then be like, well, that book sucked. That was horrible. How could anybody read that? Well, it's not my genre. I'm not just going to read it because it has a BIPOC author. So I'm still reading books that sound interesting to me. I might dive a little bit out of my comfort zone to pick up a more popular book or whatever. Like even just sitting right here, I have Slay. I'm a big board game person, not a huge game. Like what she makes in here is not a game I would necessarily play. I might not, but this is also geared towards young adults of today, and I am no longer a young adult. Maybe if this took place 15 years ago or I was 15 years younger, I might play this kind of game. I don't necessarily, but it still sounded like the greater commentary of it still sounded interesting, and I do like games enough, and I enjoyed books like Ready Player One, so I was like, sure, let's give this a shot. Anyways, so that's how BookTube has changed my reading, and being a part of readathons and stuff and having those prompts has really helped me to dive a little bit deeper into what I am reading. That being said, in the past year or so, and especially this past 2022 since having a baby, I have felt this pressure I've put on myself, not you people who are running these readathons or anything like that, but I have felt this pressure, like when it comes to a readathon, in a week I can read like a book, maybe two if I have an audio and a physical book that I have going at the same time. But I've always wanted to use readathons to be able to, like if there's 7 prompts, I like to pick 7 books, even though I can pick one book that might fit 2 or 3 prompts. I kind of like to have backup books that like one book for each prompt and kind of like depending on my mood, what am I going to read? But I can't read that many books in a week, and I put the stress on myself. The 1 week ones, I was just doing the Sun's Out, Books Out, and I got like 1 book done, and it was stressful because I wanted to read more so bad, and I just didn't have the time, and the book didn't read as fast as I wanted it to, and all this stuff. I don't want to be stressing about the books I'm reading. And so I'm putting that pressure on myself that when there's a readathon for a week, I'm like, I want to read 7 books, but that's just not attainable. There are some challenges I have signed up for. I do like the reindeer readathon every December, but it's the whole month. So you have 31 days. And because it's a reading challenge, you can't double up on prompts. So you have to like 1 book for 1 prompt. So that's a little different. But for all the other readathons, and especially the ones that are a week long, I need to pick like 1, maybe 2 that I have access to an audiobook for it. Because I also don't have the money to be doing like Audible and Scribd and Libro FM and stuff like that. So I'm relying on my library, and I live in a very small municipality. We don't have access to as many titles as other places do. So I need to find books, like maybe my challenge can be to find 1 book that fits as many of the prompts as possible, instead of trying to find 1 book for each prompt. That needs to be my challenge. But lately, like, my reading, it just feels kind of stressful, and I'm not enjoying what I'm reading as much as I could be enjoying it, because I'm just trying to get to the next book. So people are talking about these amazing books that they've read this year, or like in the past, they've read these books and I've managed to pick them up this year, like The Push, for instance, and talking about like how it's amazing and it's going to sit with them forever. And I'm at a point right now where my brain is just not handling what I have been reading or the information I've been gathering. It's just like in one ear and out the other. So I'm finding that like the books I'm reading aren't good or bad, but for me, I'm like, I'm not feeling anything when I read these books. I'm not remembering any of the plot or any of the characters or what's going on. I just remember like, it was good, it was okay. I've DNF'd so many books this year. I'm just like, my brain is not comprehending, and it's not because it's a bad book. It's not because it's boring. It's just, I'm simply not enjoying myself enough to keep reading it. And in that moment, I used to read books just whenever I wanted to read them. I typically read summer books in the summer. I read Christmas books in December. I read love books in February, whatever. But since joining BookTube and the bookish community, like I said, February is Black History Month. And then I think it was May was the Asian and Island Pacific whatever month. In June, it was Indigenous Month here in Indigenous Peoples History Month or whatever here in Canada. And it's like every month has something attached to it. And people are like, you should be reading Black books all year round, not just in Black History Month. And I agree with that. And you should be reading Asian literature all year round, not just in May. And you should be reading Indigenous literature all year round, not just in June or November, I believe, in the States. And I agree with that, but I also like kind of having that set up TBR kind of idea, like, oh, I have this stack of Black books, I can get to those in February. And it kind of like, that's how my TBR would normally go. But then at the same time, I won't be aware of these like months and these events like in May, not knowing that, I believe it was May, being the Asian month. And so then I felt pressured to read Asian literature, which I might pick up at another time, but didn't necessarily have on my list. And then I picked up a couple books from the library that sounded really interesting. I went online, I went on Google, I said, okay, what kind of books are people reading this month for this? And I was like, this sounds really good, this sounds really good, this sounds really good. And I just DNF'd all of them. So what was the point in that? It didn't get me to read diversely at all. I was just too stressed, and I was like, this is not working for me. And again, I didn't have the audiobooks, and I was like, I just want an audiobook of these things. So that's kind of where, this is my book freak out right now. It's just like, I want to enjoy the books I'm reading. And if that's 1 a month, if that's 2 a month, if that's 1 a week or 3 a week, then it is what it is. And I just have to just go with the flow. If you read 1 book a year, you're a reader. If you consider yourself a reader, you're a reader. If you're reading 100 books a month, 300 books a year, you're reading 30 books a year, whatever it is, wherever you're at, go with the flow. And there's going to be ups and downs in your life. And I have a baby, and that gives me time to read. It gives me time to read because I'm breastfeeding constantly, all the time. I'm surprised I'm not breastfeeding right now, honestly. So I have more time of sitting, but I don't have the mental capacity because I'm just exhausted all the time. I am tired. There's a reason why the hashtag mom life is coming in a coffee cup today, because I am tired so much because I am up all night breastfeeding this baby. So I have the time, but not the mental capacity to be reading all the time. And I'm doing these books a disservice. Seriously, because I'm just not enjoying them, because not because they're bad or anything like that, but I read the book, I go, that was good, I close it, and I just completely forget about the whole thing. These questions for the mid-year book freakout tag might be a little not in depth. So this is me just freaking out about books, honestly. So I just downloaded a video screen capture thing. Hopefully it works. I don't know. My niece is texting me right now. She is okay. She wants to know what I'm doing. I am recording a YouTube video. Big, giant smiley face. So let's see if this works. I'm going to screen capture the story graph where I've been keeping track of my books. It says it's recording. Let's hope this works. So I am on the story graph, currently reading. You can see I got my 2 autistic books there. Funny You Don't Look Autistic, A Comedian's Guide to Life on the Spectrum by Michael McCreary, who's Canadian. People We Meet on Vacation is an audiobook that got returned to the library, and there's 4 people waiting to listen to it. So now, who knows? I only have 2 hours of it left, so who knows when I'm going to get that back. But You Don't Look Autistic at All by Bianca Topes. I think she's Dutch. And How to Stop Losing Your Poop with Your Kids, A Practical Guide to Becoming a Calmer, Happier Parent. This is one I started back like in February for a book. No, I started it in May for a month-long readathon challenge thing that I did not get to. Reading journal. What I want to go to first is quick statistics. So let's go to stats for this year. So my goal this year is 75 books. I read the most books I read ever was in 2020, was 120 books, and that's just too many books for me. So 2021, I set my goal to 75 and I read 93. So far this year, I have read 42 books and I am ahead by 3 books. So I'm doing good. I'm on track. I kept it at 75 books just so I don't feel that pressure to read so much, knowing that I will probably go over it, but I still wanted to just keep it low. So 42 books equaling 14,438 pages. What is the orange? Can you see what orange is? Emotional. Okay, so those are my emotional books apparently. Okay, the emotional dot is like dark red, but the emotional pie part is orange. So that's confusing. Dark, lighthearted, funny, challenging. So pace, 10% slow, 36%, I believe, fast. And so I've been reading mostly medium pace books and mostly between 300 and 500 pages. Mostly fiction books, 88% fiction, 34 books have been fiction, and 17% nonfiction, so that's pretty good. I have so many more nonfiction Christian books I need to get to so bad. I've had on my shelf for years, and I need to make it a goal to read at least one of my nonfiction Christian books every month. Seriously. Genre, a big one has been contemporary with like 15 books. Then mystery, thriller, and romance, and then young adult. And then some of these also, like, I'm not sure how it categorizes it. Like, there's 0, like, history. But if I read, like, a historical romance, does that count? It probably counts in both charts, right? Format. So I have read, looks like 57% print books. A few digital books, failing at reading ebooks lately. But a lot more, like 24% audio. So I have quite a lot of audiobooks in there. Most read authors. 2 books by Diane Gabaldon, which is my rereads of the Outlander series, of course. And then I don't rate my books, so unless it's an obvious 5-star, like I said. Anyways, let's go to my documents and book tags. So I am going to go off of screen recording and do the mid-year book freakout tag now. Okay, so talk about my enjoyment of reading. So I think I covered on that and about how it's been hard for me to be like, this book is really enjoyable because I don't know, maybe it's just a reading slump and it's just where my life is right now and I need to just go with the flow. Best book you've read so far in 2022. So Beach Read, I really, really enjoyed that as an audiobook. And like I said, I am listening to People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I own Book Lovers by her that I want to get to. But I really, really enjoyed Beach Read this year as an audiobook, and I'm enjoying The People We Meet on Vacation as an audiobook as well, and then Book Lovers will be a physical book. Milk by Emma Rosen, which was a nonfiction book that I read about breastfeeding and have a whole dedicated review to that. That one was really awesome. If you are a mother and you want to breastfeed, or you're planning on breastfeeding, or you're pregnant or whatever, you're struggling with breastfeeding, you know somebody who is pregnant and wants to breastfeed or whatever, That book is amazing and highly, highly, highly recommend that one. And Know My Name by Chanel. Know My Name is the story of the girl who was sexually assaulted by this college student, Brock Turner. How sad is that I remember his name? Because his name was so much in the news, right? But hers wasn't. And that's kind of what that book is covering. Know My Name by Chanel Miller. That's what I was going to say. That one was really powerful and really, really interesting. I could see it being very triggering for people, but definitely worth a listen or a read. It talks a lot about like her as a victim and like what she had to go through versus what him as the perpetrator went through and stuff, and like how so much of it is on the victim. I need to buy like a physical copy of that book to like highlight and annotate because that was crazy. Best sequel you've read so far in 2022? Most people answer this being like, I don't read a lot of sequels, and I would be the same. But I read Dragonfly in Amber is a reread for me for Outlander, one of the few sequels I've read, and then I counted Faithless by Karen Slaughter. It's not really a sequel, but it's part of the same Grant County series, and I'm really, really enjoying the Grant County series. Oh, and Isn't It Bromantic was a really good sequel that I read this year, which is the 4th in the Bromance Book Club series. I just love those books. I also did read Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. And this is what I'm talking about not feeling connected to these books, because everyone talks about like how much they love Finlay Donovan and Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead and how much they just enjoy these books so much. This isn't a case of like we have different tastes. This is just a case of my brain not being able to like process what I'm reading so much. So I listened to Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead as an audiobook, and I really, really enjoyed it. But I didn't feel like I connected with it quite the same way as other people were. And I feel like that's just on me. I'm sure if I look it up, there's going to be reviews out there of people who said like this was stupid, this was childish, this was whatever. They didn't like it. But I don't feel like that's not my thoughts on it at all. I enjoyed it. I liked it. I'm just not connecting with books the way I want to be connecting with books. But Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead was a good sequel. Favorite reread? So I'm rereading Outlander and enjoying those. The Giver. I'm going to be doing a series on The Giver Quartet. There's 4 of them. And I've only reread the first one again. The other 3 will be new to me reads, and I haven't gotten to them yet, but I had so much to say about The Giver, and I needed to record a video like right as I was reading it. But did I? No. Now I don't have that passion there anymore, so I gotta like ramp it back up again and remember what it is that I read. My baby's crying. Let's go through this really fast. And I also reread Project Hail Mary with my husband as an audiobook, and it was a really good audiobook. I really enjoyed it, and I was reading a review of like why parts of that book are not great, and I was like, yeah, she's right, but I still really enjoyed it. It was like a 5-star for me, and I am glad I got to listen to it because I read it the first time. Genre you've been loving reading the most? So I've been loving romance this year for some reason. I don't even know why. Like, not that I never liked romance before, it just wasn't something I gravitated towards. It was more like when I first got into reading as like a teenager, I was reading a lot of Daniel Steele and Nicholas Sparks, and I guess those are romance, so I have always enjoyed romance, but I'm reading more of like The Love Hypothesis and Beach Read, which people are kind of like, maybe that one shouldn't be categorized as romance. That one's more like a life story with romance in it. But those books, like The Love Hypothesis, Shipped was one by Angie Hockman. Those books I've been enjoying as audiobooks and just listening to them a lot more than I have in the past. New release you haven't read yet but want to? Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year? I don't know. I don't know what's coming out. I don't keep up with that stuff. Honestly, I don't know. Biggest disappointment? The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, which was a wrap-up in March read, I think. I just wanted more out of it, and it just didn't deliver what I wanted it to deliver. It wasn't a bad book. I just was hoping it'd be a lot more impactful for what it was. And that was by Mitch Albom. Biggest surprise? Beach Read, because I wasn't sure about if I would like it or not, because I know Gabby from Gabby Reads was kind of like, about it. But she also explained it's marketed as romance, but it really shouldn't be just like, romance shouldn't be the forefront of it. And so I had like an idea going into it, like my expectations were a little bit more where they should have been, I guess. And then Rock, Paper, Scissors, actually, by Alice Feeney. It surprised me. I did not see the twist coming. So Rock, Paper, Scissors was a good one. I also listened to that as an audiobook. New favorite author, debut or new to you, so new to me, Emily Henry. Alice Feeney, I would definitely give another shot though for whatever else she has written, since I really liked Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I don't know who else. Another nonfiction book that's really good that I just saw pop up is 21 Things You Might Not Have Known About the Indian Act here in Canada. Definitely worth checking out, and it's accessible. I usually have a hard time with political concepts and stuff like that, but that one was accessible to me and I understood it, and it was for laymen, definitely. Newest favorite character or book crush. So I really liked, no, I took these questions from Kayla from Books and Lala, and she took out the book crush one because she doesn't get book crushes or whatever, and she mixed up the questions a little bit. So newest favorite character, I really liked Molly from The Maid. That was a really good one, and that one was a surprising book too. I listened to that one as audiobook as well, and I just really enjoyed it. And Molly was very straightforward. She said what was on her mind. She was very, very intelligent, and there was a couple twists in that story too that I did not see coming at all. I just liked Molly. She was sweet. She was straightforward. There's no beating around the bush with her. I liked her, and I liked Greer from My Eyes Are Up Here because she was a character I could relate to. That one I read as a physical book. And then book crush, I guess I would say I don't really get book crushes either, but the Russian from the Isn't It Romantic? Seriously, you guys, he's the biggest cinnamon roll. Isn't he the sweetest? For all those who have read those books, like and he's funny. Like, I just like him. He's funny. A book that made you cry. So I don't think I've actually cried at a book this year, despite the fact that I read A Little Life. So I just wrote down A Little Life. It didn't make me cry, but it was very sad and very depressing and just horrific. I just felt so bad for those characters. And for Jude specifically, of course. I don't think I've actually cried at a book yet. But I almost cried at My Eyes Are Up Here. Like, I felt that one I connected more with, so I would say that one. Book that made you happy, The Undomestic Goddess by Sophie Kinsella. I read that one, and it just made me happy. I don't know why. It just did, and I thought it was funny, and it was what I wanted out of that Giddywell Grange book, was what The Domestic Goddess did way better. And then Beach Read also made me happy because I just laughed. I just thought it was funny. Most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or you received. So my daughter was supposed to bring me down A Horse, a Boy, a Mole. That book, I can't remember all the titles in it, but I'll post a picture here and you can see it. I picked out that book for my husband to buy me for Valentine's Day. We went book shopping together. And then I literally just filmed a book haul with these 3 books in it. Technically just got this today. Just absolutely gorgeous cover. And then this one has got to be like one of my favorite. Like the little cabin, the little green trees I even like. Can I get this without like the words? But this pattern, like, can I get that as like a throw pillow or something? Because I just love that. This, and the Mole book, I think. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Lots of them. All the books. Speaking of doing like readathons, the one I like is the all year round buzzwordathon. It gives me a chance to read at least one book with that buzzword in it. This month is bookish words. So I want to read The Lost for Words Bookshop by Stephanie Butland. This is also a cute cover. I didn't get it this year, but it's a cute little bookshop window. So I need to read this in, I believe, November. I have other books upstairs, but November, the buzzwordathon is ING. So any word with ing in the title. And I happen to have these Rochelle Decker books. And I really, really, really like Ted Decker's like psychological thriller books. I'm not as big of a fan as his fantasy. And I believe this is written kind of like the fantasy. But I wanted to give her a chance. And I saw these 3 books together at the Value Village, so I bought all 3 of them several years ago. Haven't got to them, but they happen to be called The Returning, The Calling, and The Choosing, all ings. So hopefully these work out for me and I can read these 3. They're kind of thick, but maybe I can read these 3 in November, or at the very least the first one. I want to get to these. And then the other one that is sitting here, so I have July, August, September, and October books I believe are upstairs. And then December I believe is Numbers. So I have 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. Look at this book. I bought this at like a used bookstore thing because it was, you paid like $5 or whatever. You paid an amount and then you could take as many books that would like fit in your bag kind of thing. You didn't have to pay for each and every individual book, but like seriously, like this is not great. But those are the few books I want to read by the end of the year, including just all the books. Oh, and my other kids are home. My husband's upstairs with a screaming baby. Favorite video or post you've done so far this year? So I believe this is one that Kayla added as a question. My YouTube journey, nobody watches my stuff or comments or likes. I don't get likes. I don't get comments. I don't get engagement. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know what's going on. I get some views, but like a lot of the views people are clicking off in the first 20 seconds. Apparently I'm very, very boring. I don't know. But what books have I enjoyed making this year? I did a couple clean up with me videos, which were kind of cool and got me motivated to do a little bit of cleaning before the baby was born. And I'm also doing wrap-ups this year, which is a good way for me to get back into remembering what I need to read or what I have read. Doing these wrap-ups have been good I can go back and talk brain doesn't function. I can go back and watch those videos and see what I read and what I liked about them and stuff, because my brain is not computing, like remembering all the stuff I've been reading. So I like that I've been doing wrap-ups, even though those were ones I wasn't necessarily planning on doing. I've been keeping up with doing some tag videos, which have been fun, like Anything But Books, Anti-TBR, Splendid Spring Book Tag, book shopping, Dilemmas of a Book Nerd, Netflix. I think my favorite, I also just posted a little life reading vlog, and then I have my Netflix book tag, which I really enjoyed doing because me and my husband went for a walk and we saw all the different foxes on our fox walk, fox like statue things, and it was just really sweet and fun and a good time. It took us 2 days to do it because #parenting life, honestly, but it was just a really nice date, basically, date time. So I'm going to say that the Netflix book tag that I did. And then favorite book community members. So people I want to shout out that I watch on BookTube, keep up with regularly. Ashley at Bookish Realm. Chelsea Palmer. She's a fun one. She has goats. Like, how fun is that? I just subscribed to the Poptimist for his mid-year freakout tag. He seems really cool, but I've only watched like 2 of his videos. Jessica Nicole Dickerson, always a good time. Thor Wants Another Letter. Michelle, I believe, at Thor Wants Another Letter. Kim at Native Lady Book Warrior. Books with Bonnie. Booked with Jamila. I really like her stuff as well. Lovely Reads 101. I really like her stuff as well. It's been a while since I watched her videos. I am terrible at keeping up with people. Bree with the Locked Petition. That is it. Favorite book community members. So those are just ones that I've been following a lot. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, give me a thumbs up. Give me a bookish emoji. Tell me your best book you've read so far in 2022. Have you done any rereads? And if you've done this tag, let me know down below so I can go watch and spread some love over there as well. And I'll see you next time. Bye!